So it's likely unanimously agreed that the gear systems in Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and Zenless Zone Zero could use some improving. Now in this video, I'm going to propose a solution to kind of just fix them all. And it's a very small change that would solve not only a multitude of problems that currently exist for the players, but also kind of tap into the potential of a lot of the content already in these games. See, the main gearing problem is actually an RNG problem. It's not a resource problem. So that's why tinkering with the stamina cost or increasing resources doesn't really help. People have more than enough resources to get gear, they just have a problem getting good gear. And you can't solve an RNG problem with more resources. You solve an RNG problem with a pity system. So I'm going to describe how this would work in Wuthering Waves, then I'll go into more detail about the advantages of a change like this. All the devs would need to do is to add an ability to the echo menu to use echoes to reroll or modify substats. Now, the menu would work just like using weapons to level up a different weapon. You just have a bunch of slots where you can put the echoes in, and you have an option to re-roll or modify, and the different options would have different echo requirements. Now, you use 20 echoes to re-roll a substat, or 100 echoes to select a specific substat. They could even have a third option to use 8 4-cost echoes to select a specific 4-cost main stat. And really that's it, that's the whole system. And just like that, Wuthering Waves would solve all of the community's issues with the ecosystem. And of course, the exact same system would work pretty much piece for piece in Genshin. You just have to adjust for the rate that you require artifacts and however else you can get them out in the open world. Now, the number of requirements, the 20 and the 100, are just to ensure that players get to select at least one substat each week, just playing the game normally. Dailies and stamina clear, no extra open world farming. Now this ensures that a player can get a character endgame ready within a single patch without doing anything extra, just playing the normal, typical gacha player way. Now there are other advantages to a system like this besides just a more enjoyable gear building experience, and I just want to dig in on those for a few moments because all players can be ready for the endgame without needing excessive luck or any extra grinding, so that's a secondary bonus. You can use one endgame for the entire player base because you've caught all the players that would fall through the cracks of a 100% RNG system just because they have excessively terrible luck getting good gear. Now, the more interesting advantage is that the open world comes to life. See, action RPGs generally consist of about 3 persistent gameplay types. You're either acquiring power, you're building stuff, or you're mastering skills. Now, the open worlds in Genshin and Wuthering currently do not really provide any of those abilities, so they essentially become dead zones as soon as all the premium resources are taken out of them. Now, there would be a persistent value to actually farming echoes in the open world, which creates many opportunities for future content as well. Even casual players will likely spend a little extra time in co-op, strengthening their favorite characters or fine-tuning a build to have a little bit more ER. And because the selected substats will have random values still, it will still represent a near infinite grind for the hardcore players seeking that 0.1% build. Which brings me to the advantages for the developers and kind of the future of these action gacha games. See, because there's actually a lot more content released for these games than there is for games like Monster Hunter, Diablo, Path of Exile, or even like Minecraft. So these games really shouldn't have a content problem. Now, the reason those other games feel like quote-unquote main games is that those games allow players to work on things without having to be drip-fed every worthwhile activity by the developers. See, the game itself is alive with things that are worthwhile to do, and the player just goes out into the world or into the game and works on whatever they feel like. No new modes or events needed to keep them busy and engaged. Now, the gear systems in these action gachas present the perfect opportunity to give the players that same playground without interfering with the main gacha mechanics. In fact, it's still even advantageous to max refresh to get as many echoes as possible. It's even more valuable because while it's likely that with the way the system works now, you could use a max stamina refresh and come out with complete garbage probably multiple days out of the week. But with this change, it would be guaranteed to give the player at least something useful. And it's still faster than farming for the hardcore and the whales who are just trying to be the first to get a max build or just short on time. Now, a system like this will probably expand the audience appeal for these games to include players of games like Path of Exile or Monster Hunter. It will further open up the action gacha to all sorts of content that works in those other games. Pretty much anything that works in those games would work in these games, all without interfering with the main gacha gameplay loop. So with one game, the developers could reach multiple audiences that enjoy action combat. The people who play as a typical gacha, kind of a side game, and the people that play as more of a main game RPG. So that's the whole plan. I've been suggesting various forms of this since pretty much year 1 of Genshin. Have a video with a similar suggestion for Wuthering a few months back, but this method seems even easier to implement and solves more problems. Now, Genshin and Wuthering can have a pretty identical implementation of a system like this. As I mentioned, Zenless, of course, would need to revolve around the game's various modes and events to do something similar, but the outcome would be the same, or at least the principles would be the same. All 3 games could actually benefit from a variety of like dungeons and instances, but that's a story for a whole nother video. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Any tweaks or additional suggestions are welcome. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.